Welcome back once again, Skytown, to the CHGO Sky Podcast, the most dangerous podcast as part of the ALLCITY Sports Network and CHGO Sports. It's Teresa Weatherspoon Day in Chicago. I'm Chris with Stephen. Stephen, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling sensational. Coach Weatherspoon has me ready to run through a brick wall, and that's something that's special because I have a lot of just internal motivation. I don't typically go too much to external sources, but you spend 30 seconds in her aura, in her presence, you will leave with more energy than you came in with. It's inevitable.
Yeah, she definitely brought that energy. I see she must have, because she has you wearing that IS Who shirt yet again. My God.
Oh, come on, man. I gotta support. It's basketball season.
I should have known. Like, I should have known after last week and put on the Bradley shirt, because I got two of them with me.
See, that's the difference.
I forgot.
That's the difference between Bradley upbringings and Illinois State bringings. We are prepared.
That's true. Everybody, you need to wear the shirt so everybody remembers that there's a school in Normal. I get you. I get you.
The one that's better in red, yes.
Shout out to our longtime listeners, Region Rev over there in Gary, holding it down for Northwest Indiana as always. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Yo, man, we've seen you in here. Good to have you back. We look forward to having the rest of the CHGO Sky listeners coming on the show and making their thoughts heard as we go forward today with the big story of the week, Teresa Weatherspoon's introductory press conference today, which Stephen was a part of back in the building at Wintrust. I know that had to feel good, man.
Yeah, it did. Just seeing just that energy. It's one thing being over Zoom, but it's another thing when you're in person and you can feel like that human element of feel. It was abundant, man. It was just really abundant, and they did a great job with the introduction. In addition to everything that Teresa did herself.
Yeah, Nadia Rawlinson laid it on thick would sound bad, but she made sure it's like, you've seen the accolades, and we're going to, let you know, part of 5 different sports Hall of Fames, part of the WNBA's 25 best players of 25 years, former coach at Louisiana Tech, all of these things that we've talked about on the show. And I thought it was not only cool, but well thought out, not only having Nadia on the podium on the days with Teresa Weatherspoon, but also Kalia Copper, who made a point during the question and answer session to talk about how much, as you said, energy is really the word of the day. She got a lot of energy from Coach Weatherspoon. We're going to go over some of the interesting parts of the press conference that did come up. As you see this photo, we got our man Lawrence back behind the boards with us, already ready with the heat. You see it. No, I think this is not only indicative of where the franchise has made strides to go to, but the 6th WNBA player to become a head coach in league history. And not only that, 3 Black women on the days for the Chicago Sky. This is their third Black woman as head coach in franchise history, behind after Pokey Chapman and Amber Stocks. So not new territory for the franchise, but second former WNBA player, I believe, to be head coach. Because I want to check this. I know Pokey had time overseas, but I cannot remember if she logged time in the W. As you see there, the record for the previous head coaches in Sky franchise history, there was this weird time. This is not to do with the presser today. There was this weird time where I think around the beginning of the 2010s, where the Sky would regularly finish 14-20 just for some odd reason. Like, they would have really good seasons or seasons above 500, and then they would kind of journey back to that 14-20 mark. That Stephen Key could not get past that. and then he gave way to Pokey Chapman. But as we talked about before, there's a lot to measure up to. Sky gone to the playoffs 5 straight seasons, 9 of the last 11 years, and in that time frame, they're pretty well over 500. So the energy is present. We know that Teresa Weatherspoon is going to bring that, but what else did you glean that she's going to bring to the team that's going to keep them on that upward trajectory?
Well, it's one thing to bring winning just at every level and in every entity of employment that you've had in basketball. Like, that's one thing. And she had that independent of the Sky, and the Sky had that independent of her, as you just perfectly communicated. So winning is nothing new to this franchise, but to bring that type of energy to where it's even unique from just that, like that, it's just so hard to put in words. That's the impressions that she made. Like, you just look at the legacy she left as a player, and you see especially being a point guard, the leadership intangibles and the curating of relationships and the general awareness. It's just abundantly clear and obvious that she checks off all of those boxes and then some. Um, and I think having Kalia there, which was a surprise, is that's a huge sign in terms of where they are in terms of not just her involvement, which everybody seems to be fascinated with. There's no surprise that the franchise players involved with these decisions in 2023, but just to see her actually here because it's the off season. Kai could be
Right.
in Philly training with her trainer or on vacation somewhere. Like, nobody can knock her for doing any of those things, but she's here on this day as a franchise player to help ingratiate the new head coach of the franchise into this new era that they're checking themselves into, in addition to Nadia being there. Like, it's just the magnitude of it all for me. Just very impressive, man. Very impressive.
Let's go deeper into that, because I was surprised too to see Kalia Copper on the days for exactly those reasons. It's the off season. The regular or the playoffs ended 3 days ago. The regular season for the Sky ended a while back. The playoffs for the Sky ended a couple of weeks ago. You would think this is her time to either take some time off or begin training, like you said. But she was here, and she made it. And it seems like she made it a point to be here. Now, do you think that was something that was asked of her by the front office, or was that something that Kalia chose to do on her own?
Well, given how there aren't nearly as strict of rules for player availability in the off season, I can't see the Sky making it mandatory. They could have said like, "Hey, Kai, this will be a great time for you to be there with the new head coach and all of this." And I really just would rather err on believing that this was Kai's decision to be here. Like, it just felt like something that made more than enough sense. And I think that in addition to not just Kai being on the podium, but also Nadia being there on the podium, and like you mentioned, having 3 African American women on the podium as not the only pillars, but 3 of the main driving forces behind the steering wheel for where this franchise is headed in this new rendition. Again, it's just such a newness and breath of fresh air, and it's wow, man. Wow. It's really just a beautiful thing to see. Like, it's sometimes you can put things into words, and then there's other times where it's just the feelings are overwhelming in a sense, positively. And that's really just the takeaway I got from it. Just the energy was infectious, and the way that Teresa has a way with words, and not just words, but communicating them in a way that has you not just thinking that she's really believing it, but there's 10 toes down, knowing that she's just all in on everything she's saying. She's not just preaching to the choir; she's speaking on things that she truly believes, and even more than that, she's a example of those things, independent of anything else. So just kind of seeing her speak and just ingratiate herself again with the media, with people that maybe didn't know who she was or how she was as a person outside of her performing as a basketball player. I mean, you just left with all types of abundances, and just a level of confidence in her direction of the team that, like I said, man, it's just very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, she came hot with the quotes from her opening statement, where she was talking about having heard no in the past, and if you leave a, it's like if you close the door, I'm gonna find a window, and once the window's open, they don't call me spoon for nothing. I'm coming here to stir things up.
That's
And
right.
I honestly thought that was going to be the motto, but it was, talking about Kalia Copper, I thought it was interesting that she said she was ready to gear up, and she looked at Teresa Weatherspoon, and it turned out that that was Teaspoon's kind of motto for the team. She said she told everybody there, it's like, you can write it down, you can mark it. We are geared up to do the right thing, and within that, that's our campaign, and we will take over this town, which was something evident that both she and Nadia Rawlinson wanted to make clear, that the Sky are trying, really making an effort into marketing during all seasons, not just in the summertime. Nadia Rawlinson expressed that they want people to be talking about the Sky in the off season when they're not playing basketball. And Teresa Weatherspoon talked about getting into the community. A question actually came from a recent guest of the show, Monique Newton of The Next. I don't know if we got a definitive answer on how those marketing campaigns and community outreach will go, but did you pick anything up on those fronts?
Yeah, and nothing specific as far as like what the plan of action is, and what potential like media outlets they might tap into or have partnership with, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing detail wise in terms of that, but just that is a huge part in everything that Coach Weatherspoon is looking to cultivate in her culture that she's going to be a bearer of and that she plans to establish with the team. She just mentioned numerous times that community aspect of taking over a town extends far past just inside the four lines on the court, and that the engagement with the community, the understanding of the community, and the history of it, like all of those little things, like you can't be a part of a story or change things if you're not aware of what came before you. And that's not just the franchise's history, that's the city's history. I had the pleasure of speaking with her afterwards, and I kind of went back and forth with her because I listened to a podcast that she was on a couple of years ago, and she talked about how when she was um, one of the pieces to first come to the W, they sent her to the Liberty, and
Mm-hmm.
she did her research. She said she went to all of the boroughs. She wanted to know what the city was about. She even went as far as trying to figure out why they chose the colors that they chose in the initial stages of the New York Liberty's logo and embleming and everything. And that just shows a next level of assertion and just attentiveness and attention to detail. Like she truly wants to understand why things are the way they are, how she can help them evolve it, and how she can, even more than all of that, have her team exude those qualities that makes this city unique.
I wonder, because there were Chicago basketball team, women's basketball teams before the Sky, with the ABL and the WBL way back in the day in the late '70s, early '80s, and I wonder if there will be any place for the Sky to, you know, do some sort of outreach for those players, those teams, those uniforms for the people who watch basketball now, and or watch the WNBA now, but still remember we're part of those teams. That'll be something interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And I feel like if anybody was to do that, they got the right coach, because she was, like I just mentioned, one of the first players to actually play in the W, came from overseas to do so. And she's obviously big on history with the context that I just provided in terms of everything she did leading up to her time with Liberty, as well as her mentioning that she plans to do the exact same thing with the Sky and ingratiating herself with Chicago. I would also like to add one more thing from Nadia Rawlinson.
Yes.
She mentioned for us to take note of it and essentially asking to be held accountable to this. And she said that after the $85 million evaluation for 2023, which netted them as the second most valuable franchise in the W,
Yep.
which is important to note. She mentioned three of the main reasons and driving forces behind everything that they're doing is that they want to cultivate player support and resources, as far as just being available for the players and having them feel as at home as they can possibly be, and things obviously external. And in addition to that, she also mentioned elevating marketing and the fan experience, which we just got done speaking to in terms of the community engagement, seeing the Sky more than only when they're in season, and just being more personable. And then the last thing, which is I think a big topic, is securing a new practice facility. That's been something that she mentioned pretty much when she first latched onto the franchise earlier this year, and just seeing how they go about nailing those three things consistently over the course of the next handful of months before the season gets going and before business and transactions really get rolling is going to be interesting to watch.
I'm glad you brought that up because I took note of that when Nadia mentioned the practice facility. Was that I want to make sure I got it right. Was that you or was that Carly Bell who asked about that?
That was actually Nadia in her opening statement.
Well, I know that it came up about details about the practice facility, and Nadia said that definitely dedicated to making sure we have everything the players need from a health and wellness perspective. I want everyone to know about the Sky even in the off season when we're not playing. For the practice facility, we're looking at something that is the right price for us. Do we buy or do we build? And that was an interesting, not a pivot, but a way of talking about it that I don't think that we've heard from the team since the idea was brought up of making sure securing a new practice facility for the team. And it's interesting just in the wake of Las Vegas Aces have their practice facility, the Phoenix Suns making steps of building their practice facility, and in Chicago, I'll throw in another roller derby thing here. The whole thing with the Windy City Rollers is we've been practicing in this warehouse since the team was formed in like 2005. And they've been trying to get out of it for that long, but the problem is securing space. Anybody who's in real estate in Chicago knows that there is a lot of space abundant, but it has to be zoned correctly. There's all these hoops that you have to jump through. Where's Lawrence? Lawrence, have you bought a house? Did you have to buy a house ever, man?
Hey, man, I did buy a house, but I'm in the suburbs because, I couldn't afford in the city. So
he couldn't get the zoning.
Just look at our office, though. Our office is like we're in the West Loop, and it's not the greatest space. It's cool, but it's a little, there's issues with it, and it's expensive, man. It's not easy. And by the way, shout out to the Windy City Rollers and their practice space that I'm
sure leaky roof. Gotta give a shout out to the leaky roof.
We got a leaky roof here, not right here, but just outside the minority.
I was gonna say I hope not, because I know you usually wear a hat. I didn't think you were specifically wearing a hat for the show.
No, it's sunny today. It's beautiful.
Make sure that Carm and them don't come crashing through the roof after playing pickup football up there. Anyway,
I went upstairs to yell at them because, literally there was stuff coming down, debris coming down. If you go look at our ping pong table, there's just a bunch of junk all over the table now. So it's I was like, guys, what are you doing? I don't want Cole Kmet to fall through the roof. Come on.
This just all a plan to have Stephen walk on as a Bears tight end.
Yeah. Oh, not tight end. Absolutely not.
No, man. Come on. Think about it. Every block is low.
I did.
Take him out of the knees, bro.
I thought, and it's not happening. You're not splitting me out wide. It's not happening.
But no, seriously, Lawrence, you understand, I think, more than most people, the issues that you have with finding real estate within the city.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the team was committed to staking out their own spot, however much they would have to go through. And now it seems like they haven't pivoted, but they're kind of confronting some of the realities and have backed off a bit from their earlier statements. Stephen, is that the takeaway you got, or something different?
Yeah, it's them not trying to settle on just getting something that's presented to them. They want same thing with the head coaching search. I think the head coaching search is a microcosm for the intentionality behind the decisions they're making moving forward. They're not just taking what they can get. They're going to get in what they truly desire and what they feel like aligns most with the direction that the franchise is heading. So if you apply that context to finding a location or facility for the practice location that you're trying to get rolling relatively soon, actually, I think they just want to nail the margins on all their decisions, and having a location that makes sense in terms of proximity from the actual stadium being Wintrust, and where players might be staying potentially in the areas of the city or the outskirts of the city, making all of that make sense, but also having it be a place that they can truly call their own. It feels like is really what the aim is more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree with that. You got to find something that's close by and something that really fits where players can easily reach it from wherever they are staying. And that was the issue, I think, for so many players. They had to stay out in the suburbs to be close to Deerfield, and that took them away from the city, which I'm sure was good for some people. Some people like to have it a little bit more quiet, a little bit more out of the way. But you got to consider the players that you got coming to the team, especially coming to the team right now. Courtney Williams should not be in Lake County. She just shouldn't. Like, she's going to go stir crazy. And I doubt that she is in Lake County. So if something that always bounced through my mind, and I think this doesn't work because they reopened the school, but when Hales Franciscan was kind of in danger of going under a couple years ago, I thought that would be a great property. It was close by in Bronzeville off 43rd, and that would be someplace for the Sky to build. But any places like that, whether it's just open lots, there's a lot of open space off King Drive that has not been built, that I feel like if you procure it for the right amount of the right price, the old Michael Reese Hospital location, that would be a gold mine for the Sky to get. We'll see. Our man, the Sky Show Shy, saying Nadia low-key making great moves. We love to see it. We're going down the checklist smoothly. Stephen, you outlined that checklist. Your franchise player, your point guard, your coach, and your general manager. Head coach has been secured. We talk about point guard. We'll have some more talk about point guard from an angry Reddit user later in the show. But the last thing before the break that I wanted to touch on, that I wanted to ask you about, is that general manager. And Nadia was asked about that question. Not only why did they procure the head coach before procuring the general manager, which is something that we talked about, you and I, and then guests that we've had on the show, but how that search is going. And Nadia didn't hedge, but she said that there'll be more news to report when there's news. Anything that you got from behind the scenes, or just any thoughts that you had on who they might be looking at in terms of a GM?
Nah, no news on that front, but the again, energy being the key word of the pod today. The energy received from it is that the three on the podium were all on the same page. And Nadia was she was very, very direct with making sure that was understood. So you couldn't ask all three of them the same question and get three completely different answers. Even though Coach Weatherspoon was hired officially, was it 2 weeks ago now? A little over 2 weeks ago?
Just about, yeah.
They're very much on the same page with everything. And I feel like if there's no answer directly to the GM question at the moment, you better believe that the communication between those three is tight-knit, in addition to obviously Michael Alter and most likely Dwayne Wade as well. And just all of the biggest decision-making pieces are very much on the same accord. And again, when you're in a franchise that's not necessarily rebuilding in any capacity, but you're kind of redirecting the sales, that's where you want to be. And that's pretty much the energy I got from everything she said in regards to the general manager search, which we might get news on tomorrow for all we know, or it might be 2 weeks or a month from now. But they're going to be very diligent and, again, take what they want, not just what they can get.
That's very true. John said, I want the Sky to hire Sandy Brondello to be new general manager in 2024. Do you think we're seeing that?
Absolutely not. That woman just coached one of the best offenses in WNBA history, the best passing team in WNBA history, all within one season. She ain't going nowhere, man.
Sorry, John. But
yeah, sorry, John.
Brian, our man, the Sky Show, asked if there was anybody from this year's staff, the coaching staff at the press conference today. Was there anybody else present that was on the bench this year?
I, I saw trainers, and I think that was it. I don't think I saw any coaches per se. And obviously that title can sometimes be a little gray depending on what the actual position is. I saw trainers, but I don't think I saw any other coaches per se.
I definitely want to get into who Teresa could hire for her coaching staff, and then some other things that might come from the team as a result of this press conference and what we got from it today. But let's take a quick break to talk about Chevrolet, as always, at Ray Auto. If you are in the market for a new or used vehicle, Jenna Chapman, if you're watching, this is for you. We have some great news for you because Ray Chevy in Fox Lake has just joined the CHGO team. And they've got this pledge. It's very important for anybody who's bought a used car before, called the Ray Price Promise. And it is a guarantee that the price you see online is the price you pay when you go into the dealership. There's no bait and switch. There's no, we didn't refresh the cookies. You didn't clear the cookies from your browser and that price was old. No, the price you see online when you go on raychevrolet.com is the price that you are going to get in the dealership. So if you're a recent college grad of a Division II college, like my man Stephen is, if you're active in the military, if you're a farmer, if you are a cowboy, if you ride bulls, if you are a podcast producer like our man in the backwards hat, everything that you ask will be on the level, and they will not get you any price that is not something that you've already seen on a Ray Chevrolet site. And they're not going to sign you up for anything you don't qualify for, no limited rebates, nothing like that. There's no under-the-table stuff. Right now, even, you can save big at Ray Chevy during their Truck or Treat savings event. I hope you got that. It's clever. 0% is back and now available on new Chevrolet Silverado trucks, the perfect tailgate vehicle. So come on in to Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake and find the vehicle you've been searching for, and best of all, pay zero hidden fees with the aforementioned Ray Price Promise. Visit Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. That's Ray, CHEVROLET.com. Serving the community since 1963. Find new roads. Sorry. That was my last ISU joke for the day. I promise.
I shook my head in my head. I wasn't gonna give you that.
Yeah, see, that's how you know this is the leader of men right here. He's like, I'm not gonna show. No show. Coaching staff wise, Teresa Weatherspoon, I think that you actually asked that question earlier about who she thought or who she was looking at for hiring on her coaching staff. And she said that she was looking at some people. She had some people that she was in contact with that are close to her that she was going to bring aboard. I tried to find information just on who she had on past staffs, and there was one really interesting one, actually. Sarah Carter, who was on her staff multiple years at Louisiana Tech, now owns a CrossFit gym in Gulfport, Mississippi. So I doubt that she'll be coming along for this ride because CrossFit is pretty lucrative these days. But what do you think of that answer? And is there anybody that you would chance a guess at that we might see on Teresa Weatherspoon's staff?
I felt like the answer was what we would expect from her, just given the newness of everything and how swiftly things have been moving. Wouldn't necessarily expect her to have the entire deck solved and established at the moment. Also, bringing the context of her being a Naismith Hall of Famer and having experience winning on multiple levels of basketball, the pool of coaching talent and IQ that she can tap into and she can literally handpick is as abundant as any other coach could possibly even dream of. So with that in mind, no, I have no idea who she might be able to potentially or be considering for a role on her staff, on her brain trust. I just have trust in the fact that she has discernment in deciding who will be best for this situation, and it won't just be someone getting an opportunity because of them knowing somebody. Like, she's gonna pick the people that best that can best uphold all of the structures and philosophies that she has in mind, and they'll be they'll be right in alignment with everything that she spoke on today. So that's pretty much what I gathered from that, and that she's, again, like I mentioned with them speaking to the general manager role, she will be extremely diligent in picking who it is that she ultimately decides to have there for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's the clock is always ticking for the Skies. Free agency is, I mean, it seems wild to think that free agency is really just about 3-4 months away. But in that short frame of time, the Sky have to make this plan and hire that general manager along the way in terms of making that plan. But filling out the coaching staff is also a priority because even with a defensive-minded player and likely defensive-minded head coaches as Teaspoon, you're not only going to want to have somebody who specializes in offense, but you're going to have somebody who works directly with specific players, who also contributes to thoughts on defense. And, even more, even on the WNBA coaching staff, you're going to want to have 3-4 assistants maybe on the bench. It's going to be interesting. And especially when you say that, it's not going to be as a result of just knowing somebody. This is a potential clean slate like that we probably haven't seen for the Sky since, I think, the end of Pokey Chapman's tenure.
Yeah. And I think that, like we talked about heading into this past season, newness doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be very much something that's needed, and it can also be a great thing, and it can also be both of those things in tandem. And I feel like that's what this is. You can't fully enter something brand new without ridding yourself of everything that existed from a previous regime or rendition. And I feel like, of course, the decision with James Wade is what it was, but that allowed the Sky an opportunity to not just speak to doing that with the roster, but also doing that with the coaching staff and brain trust. And I feel like when you can marry both of those things together and have an entire offseason plus training camp to ingratiate all of the moving pieces together with each other, I think that's what the beauty of the opportunity given by James Wade leaving abruptly, excuse me, I can speak English, I promise you. With him leaving so spontaneously, that's the beauty of that. Like, of course, you would rather not lose your head coach unexpectedly in the middle of the season, but again, adversity breeds opportunity, and that's essentially what the Sky have been afforded. They were able to salvage as much of that out of last season as they possibly could. Now they move forward with the fully clean slate, not a half clean slate. Brand new roster, brand new coach. Let's work.
Got a nice question here from Jabez Patterson asking, after the Sky do hire their general manager, what should be that general manager's first priority? Stephen, I'm going to have you play NBA dynasty mode right here and answer that one. What's the general manager's first move?
I think the first move should be to retain Rebecca Gardner. And even before that, even before we start getting to that, scratch that.
Oh, okay.
Consult with Teresa Weatherspoon on what she desires in terms of what would be her ideal roster that she could configure based off of the monetary entities to consider with it all. So cap space, current roster or current contracts, the length of those contracts, and all of those things into consideration. Consulting with the brand new head coach and getting as close to, if not the exact roster that she could handpick and create, and executing upon that checklist, that should be as high as anything. So kind of moving in alignment with that, I'd imagine having Rebecca Gardner on the roster for a coach that as a player was as scrappy and defensive minded as it gets, falls right in alignment with anything and everything she might want to do on the defensive side, schematically and with personnel. And then addressing, obviously, like I mentioned, and like you mentioned with the checklist, finding that point guard. If it's Courtney Williams, being 10 toes down about that and moving forward with that. If it's, say, Skylar Diggins-Smith, being 10 toes down about that and moving in alignment with that. Same thing with Natasha Cloud or insert other point guard that might be available here. And doing so in alignment with what Coach Weatherspoon desires in terms of the roster that she would like to coach.
The secret tampering free agency is happening right now. When the Sky Show shot gets tapped in, man, he is just a wealth of quotes. He's trying to battle Teaspoon for the quotables today.
I love him. That man don't miss a beat. He don't miss a beat. What about you though? What do you think should be the first thing for the GM to do?
Dude, Rebecca Gardner, I think all the way. She's on that reserve deal, so you have the I hate to say leverage because I don't like how the money moves in certain, but that's just me. I'm not a money fan, but they have Rebecca Gardner on the reserve deal, so she is the team they can talk to unless they release her outright. And this is a person that is a player that you want to keep for I think not only what they bring to the table, X's and O's wise, but for the camaraderie they have with the team. You saw it with her and Izzy when they were finishing their, immobilized portion of rehab. Even then, they were at games. Rebecca was on the scooter, then she was off, and I think she hit that half court shot on the one day, and Courtney was like, "For real, like Rebecca Gardner took money out of my pocket."
Yep.
But she has so many things that she brings to this team that they were already in need of, and were looking to utilize last year. And under a Teresa Weatherspoon helm team, would be so invaluable. Perimeter defense, tough end-to-end 40-minute perimeter defense, some real Nolan Richardson type stuff. That 40 minutes of hell from back in the day is what Rebecca Gardner can bring with you. And I think when Kahleah Copper talked about she has a coach finally that matched her energy when she has been with C. Vivian Stringer and James Wade,
man,
who are not quiet at all.
No, in any capacity.
That was something like really opened my eyes. Like, wow. So I think they want to find a way. The GM wants to find a way to balance Ka's scoring load with her defensive, what she can bring defensively, that intensity. And if you can get a season from Ka that is kind of more slanted towards what we saw from Betnijah Laney, where even if she's not the primary defender on the other team's best player, she is able to help contain that other team's best player and still put up 17, 18 a night, or even towards that 20-point per game average. I think that's what the GM wants to look for. And retaining Rebecca Gardner goes a long way towards that.
Yeah, I agree. And just kind of piggybacking off of what you said, finding pieces that are going to enable Kahleah Copper to be as optimized as she can possibly be. That's it. So obviously bringing Rebecca Gardner, we talked about those two being torture twins defensively when they shared time on the floor in 2022. You can go back to, I can't remember what month it was in, but in the 2022 season, they were playing the Atlanta Dream in Atlanta. And the tandem defense they put on Ryan Howard, this was her rookie season where she was just scorching everybody because there was no film on her. And she was just doing whatever she wanted to, whenever and however. When the Sky got down there and it was Kai and Rebecca just hounded her all over the floor, off ball and on the ball, it was not a fun day for her. So if you need to re-reference that, go back and watch the film on that game on League Pass, just to kind of get an idea of what I'm speaking to. But when you can tandemize those two defensively and add Dana to that mix at the point of attack too, and potentially another guard that's elite on defense, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. And I can't imagine that a head coach that was a defensive player of the year, from the guard spot, no less, wouldn't want anything less than that on the roster. And I think, honestly, Cobb is in a position to where she can be that defensively next season, which was, in my opinion, borderline all NBA worthy on the defensive side in 2022. Between her and obviously Rebecca was most definitely that, and she didn't get it. Whole nother topic. But I think both of those two will be right back there next season, and I think Kyle will tandemize that with being a 20-plus point per game scorer in addition to all of it.
All right, y'all heard it here first. That's the early pick on whatever betting site you use. Stephen Gardner said Kyle's going to average another 20, pull down 5 boards a game, 2 steals a game. He didn't say all that. I'm putting words in his mouth. But no, you agree? Okay.
That 20 in the defense is in the bank though.
Okay.
She did it over the last half of this most recent season, which is a large reason why the Sky ended up getting in the playoffs.
That's very true. I want to go to that point guard and the Dana Evans situation because I joined Reddit finally I finally jumped in the dirty pond, and I found something kind of interesting. So
it's not that dirty according to people like Daryl Morey, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, exactly. On the WNBA subreddit, there's somebody who watches the Sky fairly frequently. It looks like they watch just about everything, but they are definitely a Sky watcher. And there was a game that they had against the Atlanta Dream in the latter half of the season. I remember that because they said specifically it's been 29 games of watching this, 29 excruciating games. And I was like, wow, okay. So somebody's hurt. And they started off by talking about how tough, how infuriating it was to watch Marina Mabry do specific things, but led that into how they were annoyed with Dana Evans' play, which I hope Region Rev is still here so we get to see the gold that those comments will be. But here we have want to keep them nameless, keep them anonymous, but talking about the average Dana Evans possession, dribble, ISO. If she doesn't get to ISO, it's a difficult pass that doesn't generate any advantage for her teammate. That specific possession, she was looking for a screen from Ruthie Hibbert and was guarded by Ari McDonald, reversed to get the screen. When the double came, she threw basically a skip pass to the left wing for an Atlanta Smith 3 that didn't hit. The Sky might as well be playing with a 14-second shot clock when DE is handling the ball. She's dribbling for 10 seconds guaranteed. Specifically, this is not her fault on drives and the kickouts, which I know you've written extensively about. It has to do with her shot profile. She likes to shoot floaters. And they ended this diatribe. There was a word that was used that was not offensive necessarily, but definitely offensive in this current climate, that they liken this to. It was pretty incredible. But they ended that diatribe with saying that this is not Dana's fault. Don't make her a point guard just because she's short. She's a shooting guard. It's like let somebody else run the offense, have her curl around double screens for catch and shoots, run screen actions where she can get downhill to those float spots. She is not a point guard. What do you think of all this?
I have a big question mark over my head. I don't know if you can see it. It's big.
It's the Nick Young meme.
Yeah. Like, huh? Yeah, exactly. I don't know how one can watch Dana Evans hoop and not think that she's anything less than a point guard. And you can say whatever you want about shot profile, although that's also ridiculous because how can you argue her shot profile when she can literally get past anybody at any moment's notice? Like, if you watched all the games last season, how many people were able to stop her from driving when she put her mind to it? So if you want to talk about shot profile and creating an advantage, she is an advantage because her first step is as quick as any players in the WNBA with or without a live dribble. So I'm confused as to why you would argue about her shot profile and the floaters. She has to shoot floaters because if she's getting consistent pressure on the paint, she's not going to go dunk on somebody. She's also not going to go and finish through contact consistently because of her stature. But what she is good at is deceleration when she gets past her initial defender, gets to the paint, and she's able to slow herself down with enough space to get up those soft touch looks before the next help can get there or to kick it out. And to mention that her kick out passes were, I can't remember the exact language used, but it was very inaccurate and misleading. To say that she's not able to generate advantages off of her drives when she's literally one of the best drivers in the W just doesn't make sense. If you want to say anything about the drives, you could say that they weren't as effective as they could be because of the spacing issues that the Sky had at times over the course of the season. We talked about how important the 3-ball was for the Sky. In games where they hit like 6 or 7 plus, they were very much above 500. And in the games that they didn't, they were very much underneath 500, below 500. So you can talk about if you want to apply the context in terms of what was going on in that specific game. Okay, you might have some leeway to work with. But if you want to talk about the overall talent and the film that she put out this season, to say that she is a shooting guard is to be respectful, that is nonsensical. That's what that is. That's not it. But you could say that she should add more off-ball activity to her overall dynamic, yes. but you also have to have your coach enable you to do so. And when you're on the roster that only had 2 point guards last season, where is she going to find the room to do that? Like, if she's not going to bring the ball up the floor, like, what are we talking about right now? And if you put her off ball, now you're taking away something that Marina Mabry is most optimized with and working off the ball. Kalia Copper is most optimized and working off the ball. So you're going to reconfigure your entire synergy of the team based off of trying to change a player that is a point guard into not being a point guard. Like, that makes no sense. I can say a lot more about that, but I can kind of just leave it at that for now.
I think you said enough. We might have to generate that segment of Steven's lessons in basketball. That would honestly be pretty good, because I know that everybody out there. The problem with Reddit. One of the problems with Reddit.
There you go. That's much better. There you go.
It's the same issue that there is with Twitter or Instagram or any social media. Region Rev not ignoring you. Let me consult Spoon's book, Teresa Weatherspoon's Basketball for Girls, on this Dana Evans Reddit mess. Yeah, I'm sure that book said Dana's a point guard too. The problem with the social media, and even, you could say with where we're on right now, there's a larger point, is that it gives everybody the chance to have a platform. And not everybody has the background to speak about these things, even people who have watched a lot of basketball. The thing about us that qualifies, if this was 2017 and I just started covering this guy, there's no way I would be on this show. I should not be on the show because I was just coming in. I watched a lot of basketball before that, did not know the first thing about the team or the game. I was coming in, listening to a lot of people. And that's why, again, I will always treasure that time that this guy had, Pokey Chapman, because I learned a lot just from her statements at pressers, talking to her at press conferences, watching how she operated and ran a team. But I think saying things definitively and being somewhat snide and then having some knowledge of the game equates to having a platform where people will listen to you, especially in social media these days. It's not really what it's about. So I think we've gone through that segment pretty well enough. Dana Evans is a point guard. It's still up in the air to see whether she'll be the point guard or the second point guard on this next iteration of the team in 2024. But just saying that Dana Evans should be a shooting guard, I think is I'm going to just say I agree with you. I think it's off base. I think that a lot of things were done the same with Allen Iverson in the NBA side, and I saw the merit with that. That was my first thought when I read this. But I think when you have athletes who are basketball players, the caliber of Dana, and especially the caliber of AI, you put the ball in their hands where you can. You just try to get the right pieces around them. And I think the person was ignoring what you said. The right pieces weren't there for this guy just by circumstance last year.
Correct. And this is why my last little follow-up on that. I mentioned earlier this season after talking with Dana pregame, somewhere in the middle of the season, got to ask her who one of her, like, archetype-wise, who was somebody that she watched film of to add to her game, to figure new things out about the game and all of that stuff. And she mentioned Skylar Diggins-Smith. So if you look at Dana play, are you going to look at Skylar Diggins play and you're going to tell me that Skylar Diggins is not a point guard? Because if I remember correctly, in 2022, Skylar Diggins was, in the regular season, the best point guard in the WNBA. And the parallels between the way and the mindset and the manner and the movement patterns in which Dana Evans puts her dynamic over the course of a game on is no different than how Skylar Diggins does. And you can even look past that offensive side, look at the defense. It's literally spitting images of each other. And so to look at that, and are you going to tell me that Skylar Diggins-Smith is not a point guard because you don't like that she's a score first player? You can be a score first player and be a point guard. Chelsea Gray's shown that how many times? She's a back-to-back champion. She's won how many championships? Steph Curry, a score first point guard. He goes about it differently. He's also, how many times has he won a championship? So you know that is just wildly inaccurate. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Let's move on to some quick hits. Elizabeth Williams picked up some hardware. She won the 2023 Kempero Sportsmanship Award. Real cool for E-Will. I think that she was a very, I mean, like saying that she was an integral part of last year's team is understating it. But I think that it sometimes gets lost in the shuffle just because she's so quiet and matter of fact. But also, sorry to all the basketballs that she blocked. I'm sure that they didn't feel like she was a sports person of the year.
No. They probably thought she was very rude, actually.
They were hurt. Some of the people in the front row, too, they were like, that was rude. That was mean.
They didn't know they were coming to watch a volleyball game. They thought they was watching hoop. And here comes E.
It's like, oh, no. Asia Wilson, double-double in the finals. Brianna Stewart, I think, ended up 3 for 17 from 3 as the Aces beat the Liberty in 4 after all three of us, you, me, and Teresa Foster-Brasby, sat here last week and said the Liberty are winning Game 4. How do you evaluate that Asia versus Stewie matchup in the finals and that MVP award from the regular season?
I definitely said the Liberty were going to win given all of the injury adversity that the Aces were going through. But I did mention a caveat saying that if Asia decides to be the best player in the league, which she is, in my opinion, that could change. That's enough to change everything, regardless of who's playing with her, who the other 4 players are. And she did just that, especially in the second half of that Game 4. That's a legendary performance. And again, you could talk about super team this, super team that. Guess what? They did not have a super team in that Game 4. And they were, matter of fact, they were without 3 of the most integral pieces to everything that they plan to do this season. Yet they still found a way to win. Winners find a way to win. Asia Wilson is a winner. Asia Wilson is the best player in the WNBA. If that was a question prior to this final series, it should not be a question leaving it. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Dude, that third quarter after the Liberty were up double digits at halftime, I really don't. I don't know what to say. Like, it's incredible watching Asia play because I'm writing about this for another outlet right now. She goes about the game in such a focused way, but when there's time away from it, it doesn't. Like, I remember in LeBron with his best Cavs teams, and they were always like dancing and joking on the bench, but that's because they were blowing teams out. Like, Asia feels like she's having fun in real tense situations, and sometimes it seems like somebody's like, "Oh, you got to reel her back," but she never seems to be playing outside of herself or hurried. She's very rarely bothered, and it's something else. It really is something else. I won't go over that third quarter, but if you just check Basketball Reference from 5:05 of the third quarter to the end of the quarter, when the Aces went on a 12, I think it was a 15-5 run and turned an 8-point deficit into a 2-point lead. Asia Wilson scored 9 of those 15 points.
And that's in tandem with the defensive efforts and levels of energy that she was putting on. It was legendary. Like Becky said, this was not sober Becky, but this was definitely Becky speaking from her right state of mind in this, and saying that she's one of the. Oh, it was very much. There was no profanity in this quote, but she basically said she played against all the GOATs, and that Asia is definitely one of them, and she will be at the top of that list. That's pretty much.
She said the GOAT of the GOATs.
Correct.
Like, Becky was out there when Lisa Leslie was still.
I was gonna say who's gonna tell her she's wrong?
Jackson
she went up against them all. Yep.
Hooped against Sil.
Prime DT. Prime Stu. Yep. She didn't miss. She played against Dawn. She hasn't missed anybody. She hasn't missed anybody. So to get that from your coach, and she said that's why she's gonna coach her harder than she's ever been coached before. That's what she followed up that statement with. And then pretty much dropped the mic. You know, that's one hell of a best player and head coach tandem right there. And we are going to see plenty more of that type of energy and interaction back and forth with the Sky moving forward for sure. Yeah. We already saw a little bit of it today as it is.
Yeah, I want to see what that's going to be like, the interplay between Teresa Weatherspoon and Becky Hammond as we come into next year. You kind of wonder if there'll be some, you know, even just making that jump to the head coach in the pros, growing pains for Teresa Weatherspoon. I wonder what that'll be or what it'll look like. And for this team that's coming off such an odd campaign, but as Teresa Weatherspoon said, and you asked this question, like how does she want to work against these quote unquote super teams defensively? How do you take them out of their offensive rhythm? And she said, that's a great question, but I don't play catch up with anybody. It's coming in hot.
Yep. And if there's any way you want to send messages to players on your roster and players that might be interested and think this might be an environment that aligns with them, if your answer was going to be anything less than that, then it's not going to work, because there's going to be a disconnect. You have to care to a certain extent. There has to be a lot of care in that, and she has a whole bunch of it, as she should. I think the Sky are in great hands with her on the sideline now, moving forward.
More to come in the future. We're still looking out for the announcement of that general manager spot, the coaching staff, who will fill out that coaching staff, and then free agency looms. As Sky Show Shy said, the secret free agency tampering is probably already beginning. Hopefully we'll see Rebecca Gardner on that list as things move forward into the winter months. The winter months will not be dull. El Nino or not, it's going to be some warm times in Skytown. Stephen at StateTrueS.3, what you got coming down the pipeline for us, man?
I'll be having some content coming over the next, really just the rest of the offseason while Sky players are playing overseas. Just talking about some of the skill development things that we might see, and just some of the general performances and how they could translate back to the Sky moving forward into 2024.
Awesome. That's going to be fun to see. As always, we'll talk about his work is going to be coming up at PHNX Suns. Follow our PHNX affiliates if you're down in the Grand Canyon State. Also follow PHLY for Philly Sports. The Phillies have a big finale to their series coming up tomorrow, I believe. That's going to decide things between the Phillies and Diamondbacks.
Yeah, it's in like 2 hours. 2 hours and 2 minutes.
You can tell how disconnected I am from baseball right now.
Game 7, baby. It's a big one.
Nothing, no sweeter words in sports, right? Game 7, winner take all.
That's right.
This has been the CHGO Sky Show. As always, we ask that you skydrate. Don't leave home without your water. For our producer, Lawrence Benedetto, the best in the business.
Yo, boom.
And everybody else in the CHGO Sports family. I'm Chris Pennant. Follow me at Quandary Kitten. That's KWANDARY Kitten on Twitter. This has been the CHGO Sky Show. Until next time, folks, keep your feet on the ground and your head above the clouds.
Gear up.
We all silly like the mayor.